Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Water Resources Bill number 8 of 2024 be read a second time. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a landmark piece of legislation, one that is highly significant for the Republic of Mauritius. L'eau est une des ressources essentielles pour l'humain et pour le développement économique d'un pays. Permettez-moi, Monsieur le Président, de citer Saint-Exupéry, et je cite, « L'eau n'est pas nécessaire à la vie, l'eau est la vie. Cependant, sa disponibilité est de plus en plus limitée et le monde est confronté à des défis sans précédent pour approvisionner les citoyens et aussi à nourrir les populations, vu l'importance de l'eau dans l'alimentation et l'agriculture. Aujourd'hui, on l'appelle l'eau bleue. L'eau devient de plus en plus rare et à travers les décennies, à Maurice et dans le monde, l'accès à l'eau est de plus en plus difficile avec les effets du réchauffement climatique et la pollution des ressources en eau. Nous faisons face à un double défi pour les années à venir. Prévoir l'approvisionnement en période sèche et répondre à une demande qui continue à augmenter chaque année. Au-delà d'être précieuse, l'eau est au cœur du développement durable. Elle est capitale pour assurer un développement socio-économique inclusif. L'importance de ce sujet n'est plus à démontrer. Les gouvernants dans le monde sont appelés à mieux conserver, à mieux utiliser, à mieux gérer et à mieux protéger les réserves en eau. L'eau en tant que domaine public nécessite que sa gestion soit régie par des principes d'équité et de justice sociale. En gérant judicieusement cette ressource précieuse, nous assurons un approvisionnement équitable au peuple, la stabilité économique et la résilience face aux défis environnementaux. Ce projet de loi, Monsieur le Président, va dans cette direction et comme dans d'autres pays du monde, il y a eu l'intervention de l'État pour un contrôle sur les ressources en eau afin que la population et le secteur agricole puissent avoir un approvisionnement adéquat en période de sécheresse. Monsieur le Président, cela nous a pris du temps pour la préparation de ce projet de loi, vu la complexité du secteur de l'eau et les différentes lois régissant ce secteur. Actuellement, plusieurs ministères et organismes du gouvernement sont concernés par les législations par rapport à l'utilisation, la protection et la conservation de l'eau, et ce, avec des objectifs différents, notamment the Rivers and Canal Act de 1863, the Public Health Act de 1925, the Groundwater Act de 1969, the Central Water Authority Act de 1971, the Irrigation Authority Act de 1979, the Forest and Reserve Act de 1983, the Environment Protection Act de 2002, maintenant the Environment Act 2024, the Local Government Act de 2011. Pendant longtemps, ces lois sont restées inchangées. Certaines ne répondent plus aux exigences socio-économiques actuelles et aux défis liés à la gestion de l'eau, particulièrement dans le contexte d'un État insulaire. D'autres sont vétustes et ne permettent pas une approche intégrée et durable pour la gestion de nos ressources. Monsieur le Président, il n'existe à ce jour aucun cadre légal global régissant la gestion intégrée et durable de nos ressources en eau. C'est impératif que pour mon ministère de présenter une politique de gestion intégrée de ressources en eau et un cadre légal moderne capable de répondre à ces défis. Nous devons considérer l'ensemble du cycle de l'eau dans nos politiques et nos pratiques, depuis la collecte jusqu'à la distribution, en passant par la réutilisation la préservation et la protection. Le cadre légal doit prévoir des réglementations sur l'utilisation des ressources en eau, la protection des sources d'eau, la gestion des eaux usées, ainsi que des mesures de conservation. Il doit également encourager l'innovation et l'adoption des technologies durables pour une meilleure efficacité dans l'utilisation de nos ressources. Mr. Speaker, sir, all this is clearly reflected in a main object of the Water Resources Bill in the explanatory memorandum. The bill thus provides, 1, a legal framework for the use, management, control, protection, conservation, and sustainable development of water resources in Mauritius. 2, it seeks to safeguard the immediate and long-term public interest for an equitable access to water. 3, ensures water security and resilience. 4, establishes a Water Resources Commission under the aegis of the Ministry. 5, promotes the efficient use of water. And 6, makes provision for and in connection with matters incidental and connected thereto. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I go on to explain the various provisions of the bill to the House, I must say, à cette Chambre, en toute humilité, Monsieur le Président, that today is a momentous occasion for me. This is the second time in my political career that I'm bringing to this august assembly another landmark legislation. In the year 2002, under the leadership of late Sir Anirudh Jagannath, I introduced the Regional Assembly Bill for the decentralized system of administration for our brothers in Rodrigues. Today, under the able leadership of Honorable Praveen Kumar Jagannath, I have yet again the honor to pilot the Water Resources Bill, another crucial piece of legislation that seeks to address perennial issues in the water sector with a view to building our water security and resilience, thus providing the necessary strong foothold for our Republic to pursue its socio-economic growth for the benefit of our population. Monsieur le Président, la gestion des ressources en eau doit être bénéfique pour tous. Les conventions internationales préconisent que les ressources limitées doivent être partagées au bénéfice et à la prospérité de tous les citoyens. Nous avons aussi, en tant que citoyens, la responsabilité de mieux utiliser et protéger cette ressource. Le changement climatique impacte grandement nos ressources en eau. Au cours de mon mandat comme ministre des Services publics, j'ai été témoin de 2 épisodes de sécheresse prolongée causés par des changements dans les régimes de pluie et le volume de précipitations. L'île Maurice est déjà classée comme un pays en situation de stress hydrique et devrait entrer dans la catégorie des pays pauvres en eau d'ici 2030. Monsieur le Président, la gestion intégrée et durable de l'eau est donc essentielle pour construire un secteur de l'eau résilient. Les périodes prolongées de sécheresse affectent à la fois les sphères sociales et économiques. Monsieur le Président, plusieurs facteurs expliquent l'interruption de l'approvisionnement en eau, notamment la disponibilité des ressources en eau, l'inefficacité dans les systèmes de distribution, un manque de planification dans l'utilisation des ressources en eau, une gestion non intégrée du secteur et une demande des citoyens et des opérateurs économiques qui augmente annuellement. Une des solutions serait une approche axée sur une meilleure gestion et l'utilisation de nos ressources limitées, leur conservation et protection. Il n'existe actuellement pas d'approche planifiée ou intégrée pour les projets d'investissement des secteurs publics et privés. Nous avons noté plusieurs manquements à ce niveau. Le résultat d'un manque de planification et de coordination, en somme, Monsieur le Président, une approche en silo et inefficace. Il est donc primordial d'adopter une nouvelle politique de l'eau capable de s'adapter aux changements climatiques, d'augmenter nos ressources en eau de manière efficace et durable afin d'améliorer l'approvisionnement en eau et répondre aux besoins croissants des différents secteurs. Monsieur le Président, augmenter nos ressources en eau seulement ne suffira pas. Il nous faut impérativement réduire le niveau élevé de pertes sur le réseau, ce qui rendra plus viable financièrement le service de distribution de l'eau. Il est aussi nécessaire de mettre en place un cadre légal pour le développement de sources d'eau non conventionnelles telles que le dessalement, la collecte des eaux pluviales, l'utilisation de la technologie pour la production de l'eau, le recyclage et la réutilisation des eaux usées traitées. Ce nouveau cadre légal viendra aussi renforcer les mesures de protection de nos ressources en eau en raison de la menace causée par l'augmentation des activités industrielles, agricoles et commerciales. Pour ce faire, le projet de loi prévoit la mise en place d'une entité nationale dotée d'un mandat clair et des pouvoirs réglementaires qui sera chargée de gérer de manière durable et équitable l'allocation des ressources en eau qui appartiennent à l'État de manière juste et transparente, en tenant compte des besoins des différents utilisateurs tels que les agriculteurs, les industriels, les commerciaux et les abonnés domestiques. En outre, elle veillera à la mise en œuvre de mesures de conservation tout en promouvant une pratique efficiente et en encourageant l'adoption des technologies modernes. La protection des ressources en eau sera également au cœur de ces missions. En assurant une coordination nationale, cette entité garantirait une approche intégrée et cohérente de la gestion des ressources en eau, essentielle pour faire face aux défis actuels et à venir. Monsieur le Président, la croissance socio-économique a redéfini le paysage économique et démographique de notre pays. Selon les chiffres du Bureau des statistiques du pays, de l'an 2000 à 2023, c'est-à-dire en 23 ans, le nombre de consommateurs de la CWA est passé de 241 383 à 394 890, une augmentation de plus de 150 000 consommateurs en 23 ans. À travers les décennies, il y a eu l'émergence des nouveaux secteurs économiques au détriment d'autres secteurs. Il est donc impératif que le secteur de l'eau s'adapte à ces changements. Il nous faut une nouvelle politique pour rendre le secteur plus soutenable à travers une protection de nos ressources en eau et aussi à travers une distribution plus équitable. Mr. Speaker, sir, another key rationale underpinning the development of a new and modern water resources legislation is the adoption of a new process in the allocation of water resources. Our main sources of water currently are groundwater and surface water. According to the latest water statistics, rainfall for the year 2023 has been of the order of 4,742 million meter cube, of which surface runoff is 2,845 million meter cube and evapotranspiration is 1,423 million meter cube. The net recharge to groundwater stands at around 474 million meter cube. According to the same statistics, usage of water resources in year 2023 has been as follows: hydropower 337 million meter cube out of 956 million meter cube, representing 35%. Domestic, industrial, and tourism, 313 million meter cube out of 956 million meter cube, representing 33%. Agricultural, 296 million meter cube out of 956 million meter cube, representing 30%. The domestic sector uses a ratio of 54% surface water and 46% groundwater. Agriculture uses 98% of surface water and 2% of groundwater. And hydropower uses solely surface water. Moreover, average domestic water utilization has increased from 210 million meter cube per year for the period 2000 to 2012 to 260 million meter cube per year for the period 2013 to 2020. For the same periods, agricultural water utilization has declined from 390 million meter cube per year to 335 million meter cube per year. In the year 2023, it has further decreased to 296 million meter cube. This can be in part explained by the fact that agricultural lands are either being abandoned or converted for residential and commercial purposes. It is equally fundamental to highlight that some major water users have been claiming an absolute property right of ownership over water as a prescriptive right in the different rivers flowing through their lands on the basis that they have been availing of these waters over the past several decades or even centuries. Mr. Speaker, sir, utilization of river waters can be either through titles of concession or by order from the Supreme Court. The judgment of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in February 2022, in a case lodged by Ciel Limited and Tropic Needs Limited against the Central Water Authority, clearly establishes that, and I quote, the waters of the river formed part of the domain public and could not be acquired by prescription under Mauritian law, end of quote. Moreover, and I quote, public rights cannot be acquired by prescription. The borderers could only hold rights to use water on the basis that their rights could at any time be removed or reduced by the Supreme Court. In any event, it is well established that there can be no prescription against public property, end of quote. The Water Resources Bill accordingly provides that all surface water, including springs, which are the sources of a river, the tributary of a river or stream, are part of the domain public and are inalienable and imprescriptible. Monsieur le Président, de plus, à travers le temps, il y a eu des changements considérables dans l'utilisation des terres qui étaient auparavant principalement sous culture de la canne à sucre et d'autres activités agricoles. Il y a donc lieu d'évaluer et de réévaluer les droits de prélever et d'utiliser un certain volume d'eau d'une rivière à l'origine accordée pour l'irrigation. L'étendue des terres utilisées sous culture de la canne et agricole a été considérablement réduite. Il est donc, Monsieur le Président, opportun de définir un cadre légal solide et moderne et des mécanismes institutionnels appropriés pour remédier aux incohérences et inefficacités qui se perpétuent et aussi d'entreprendre des changements dans une gestion durable pour assurer la sécurité d'approvisionnement de l'eau à Maurice pour les secteurs économiques, mais particulièrement pour le besoin domestique. Le texte de loi, je dois le souligner, Monsieur le Président, met l'accent sur une gouvernance efficace, intégrée et durable des ressources en eau, ainsi qu'à l'intérêt prioritaire de son usage à des fins potables et domestiques, conformément au ODD, c'est-à-dire Objectif de développement durable. Monsieur le Président, je dois préciser que mon ministère a eu plusieurs sessions de travail avec les différentes institutions publiques et les organisations du privé dans le cadre de la préparation de ce projet de loi. Les ministères concernés, les collectivités locales, les associations des consommateurs, Business Mauritius, la Chambre d'agriculture et les représentants des petits planteurs ont été consultés. J'ai également eu une réunion avec les représentants de Business Mauritius, la Chambre d'agriculture et l'ARIM, où ils m'ont fait part de leurs commentaires et propositions. Monsieur le Président, mon ministère a eu recours au service d'un consultant, en l'occurrence M. Melvin Woodhouse, qui a plus de 40 ans d'expérience dans ce secteur et qui a participé à la rédaction de plusieurs lois pour le secteur de l'eau dans plusieurs pays, notamment le Nigeria, la Tanzanie, le Népal et le Chili, entre autres. Nous avons aussi eu recours à l'expertise de l'ancien chef-juge, son Excellence M. Ashraf Ali Konai, comme conseiller légal pour la préparation et la finalisation de ce projet de loi. Mr. Speaker, sir, I will now go through the main provisions of the Water Resources Bill, which comprises 8 parts. At the outset, I would like to outline that the provisions of the bill will apply to the Republic of Mauritius with specific provisions regarding Rodrigues at Part 7 of the bill. It advocates an integrated and holistic approach to the management of water resources, water secure planning relies on a coherent water policy. The globally accepted framework for the holistic and sustainable management of water resources is the IWRM, that is, the Integrated Water Resources Management. This is a process organized on 3 principles, namely social equity, economic efficiency, and ecological sustainability. It is endorsed by the UN Water Conference, the World Water Forum, and reiterated in the UN Global Sustainable Agenda under SDG 6. The global endorsement of IWRM underscores its importance in achieving sustainable development goals and addressing the complex challenges of water security in the 21st century. Thus, Mr. Speaker, sir, the objects of the bill listed at Section 4 are, inter alia, to promote the efficient use of water and to provide for an integrated management of water resources, safeguard the immediate and long-term public interest for an equitable access to water and its beneficial use for social and economic development, promote and coordinate the coherent, orderly, and optimal use of water resources for the public benefit, develop preparedness, adaptation, and resilience strategies to address the adverse effects of climate change in relation to water resources, adopt appropriate management approaches and technologies for the purpose of reducing the waste or loss of water, promoting water recycling, reuse, desalination, and alternative water sources, encourage and require water users to contribute towards the protection of the quality of water and to carry out their activities by way of cooperation and a mutually shared understanding of the growing stress upon finite water resources. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important to outline that this bill provides a clear demarcation of responsibilities in respect of development and mobilization of water resources on one hand, and the treatment and distribution of water by the CWA for potable use and other uses on the other hand. Infrastructure that belongs to the Central Water Authority or that is being run by the Central Water Authority for the purpose of supplying treated water on the coming into operation of the Act will continue to be vested in the Central Water Authority. Hence, the CWA will continue to develop, operate and maintain its boreholes, pumping stations, service reservoirs, water treatment plants, containerized pressure filtration plants, and distribution network. On the other hand, infrastructure used for mobilization and development of water resources, such as dams and feeder canals, will be vested in the Water Resources Commission. These are listed in the first schedule. Part 2, Mr. Speaker, sir, deals with the framework for water resources management. Mr. Speaker, sir, Part 2 of the bill elaborates on how water resources would be managed, the establishment of a Water Resources Commission with a legal entity as a department within my ministry, as well as the powers and duties of the minister. The current Water Resources Unit will be revamped into the Water Resources Commission. This commission will be responsible for the management of all surface water, underground water, springs which are part of domain public, and the vested publicly owned water resources infrastructure. The Commission will be responsible to the supervising officer of the ministry for the proper discharge of its functions. The main functions of the Water Resources Commissions are A, to be responsible for the use, management, control, and development of water resources in relation to water use for all purposes. B, to monitor and enforce measures for the conservation, efficient use, and protection of water resources and their related environment. C, to be responsible for the management of bulk raw water. D, construct or cause to be constructed dams, barrage, and such other works, structures, and devices as may be necessary to provide bulk raw water supplies. E, elaborate and implement plans for the development, mobilization, and sustainable use of water resources, which incorporate integrated water resources management, optimal utilization of water resources, schemes for desalination, and other alternative water resources. F, maintain and update a national inventory and database of water resources and hydrological data and registers of the water use permits and existing water rights. G, monitor the quality of surface and underground water and ensure protection against the discharge of effluents or any other activity which may adversely impact upon the quality of any water resource. H, ensure safety and maintenance of vested water resources, infrastructure, and inspect and monitor privately owned water resources infrastructure on safety requirements. I, maintain, monitor, and manage restricted areas, buffer zones, and reserve uses of water as are prescribed and required. And J, undertake measurements and analyses to determine availability of water resources. In the discharge of its functions, the Water Resources Commission can enter into agreements with public departments for the supply of bulk raw water, establish and maintain accredited laboratories and monitoring stations, as well as establish hydrological areas and define river basins for proper water resources management. Mr. Speaker, sir, the duties and responsibilities and powers of the minister in this governance structure are decisive. The minister will set national objectives and goals to ensure long-term water security and sustainability of water resources, and will have developed and implemented the relevant strategies and policies. Given that water resources cut across several institutional jurisdictions, there is a duty to ensure cooperation and coordination among public and private stakeholders, as well as monitor activities in relation thereto. With a view to ensuring that adequate water is available for public consumption and to meet the water requirements of the population, the minister will have the power, upon the recommendation of a multi-sectoral committee established under Section 16 of the bill, to vary temporarily the use of water granted to a user, authorize drawing of surface or underground water for a specific period of time, authorize drawing of water from surface and underground or desalination of seawater until a permit is issued, initiate procedure for land acquisition in accordance with the Land Acquisition Act for the management, use, and protection of water resources if deemed necessary in the public interest. It will be the Water Resources Technical Committee, comprising stakeholders from various ministries and institutions, that will make recommendations for the minister to exercise such powers. The actions referred to at Section 7G are of a temporary nature and for a specific period of time and are dependent on circumstances. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I have mentioned previously, I have witnessed 2 prolonged drought periods during my tenure as minister responsible for public utilities. It has been deemed important to include the above section in order to ensure that necessary action can be taken promptly in times of emergency or dry season to prioritize potable water for public consumption through mobilization of adequate water resources from surface or ground. In fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, there have been instances of public outcry over the past years, particularly in water-stressed regions, where there is an inadequate volume of water mobilized by the CWA due to a declining levels of boreholes and reduced flow in rivers during prolonged dry period. The above provision in the bill should provide the necessary leverage for the minister and the Commission to intervene positively and affirmatively in the public interest. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the reform areas in the governance of water resources is the introduction of a water allocation system, whereby all the waters in the domain public or vested in the state would be shared with water users in accordance with clearly spelled out and transparent criteria. This process and its mechanism are defined at parts 2 and 3 of the bill. Any person wishing to draw water from a surface source or underground will have to apply for a water use permit to the Water Resources Commission. A multi-sectoral committee, that is the Water Resources Technical Committee, comprising representatives from concerned ministries such as Agriculture, environment, housing, local authorities, etc., will examine applications received in compliance with procedures specified in the bill and make recommendations to the Minister. The criteria to be taken into consideration by the committee in determining the water entitlement is already laid out in the bill at Section 8 and include the following: priority to be given to ensuring adequate supply of water for the needs of the population and for purposes of public utility and safety in the national interest. Current and future social and economic needs, availability of water resources in the catchment or hydrological area, need for conservation and protection of water resources, environment protection of ecosystem, and preparedness for climate change. In addition, Section 23 of the bill specifies the factors to be taken into consideration for the purpose of making a recommendation, and these include, inter alia, A, the availability, intended volume and purpose of use of water, B, the requirements laid down in Section 8 for the purpose of determining the entitlement to the use of water, C, whether any construction work, abstraction or discharge of surface or underground water, or the abstraction of brackish or seawater is in a location or area protected by law from such development or use. D, whether the use of the water, discharge of water, or any associated construction work would contravene or is likely to contravene this Act or any other enactment. E, whether the use of the water or the consequences of its use would pose a direct risk to the public health or the environment. And F, whether the applicant has the ability and capacity to comply with and to fulfill all the requirements under this Act. Sections 8 and 23 of the bill together ensure a transparent and objective approach to determining water allocation to applicants and water users. Mr. Speaker, sir, the composition of the Water Resources Technical Committee is such that it will enable it to fulfill its function as per Section 19 of the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, all recommendations of the Water Resources Technical Committee made to the Minister will be submitted for approval of Cabinet. The House may note that water allocation through permits for a defined period subject to renewal is a global trend. It is an internationally adopted practice where existing entitlements are appraised and reassessed for increased efficiency. Mr. Speaker, sir, an article published in 2021 in the Review of European Comparative and International Environmental Law Journal analyzes 220 policies and laws governing water use permits of 60 Anglophone and Francophone countries of Africa and Asia. The article concludes that most states have put water in the domain public and governments are the custodians of the nation's fresh water. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards the duration of the water use permit, the key issue is to strike an appropriate balance between the security needed to encourage investment and the need for flexibility as regards future allocations of water. The article also concludes that permits of indefinite duration are not considered feasible. Mr. Speaker, sir, several countries that have transitioned away from traditional water regimes have adopted such modern frameworks to better manage water resources, especially taking into account factors that influence water resources such as climate change, seasonal variation, shifting of societal needs and priorities, efficiency of use, technological advancements, economic consideration, and ease of regulatory oversight. A noteworthy point to highlight is that, unlike the right to use water under the Rivers and Canals Act of 1863, which was for an indeterminate duration and for a fixed purpose, which is irrigation, the water use permit provided under the Water Resources Bill is flexible, first in terms of volume allocated and purpose and duration of use. Mr. Speaker, sir, Part 3 of the Water Resources Bill caters for the process of applying for a water use permit, processing and examination of the application under a predefined criteria by the Water Resources Technical Committee, payment to be effected, and alterations to be made to the permit. Under Section 26, a water use permit is valid for a period not exceeding 5 years and may be renewed for successive periods of 5 years or less. The validity period is a function of the rate of decrease of surface underground water flows generated by climate variability, simultaneous increase in demand for the resource, and the proposed regular review of the hydrological areas. Subsection 26(4) lists out what the permit will cover, such as period of validity, purpose of use, any special conditions during dry season or for environmental concerns, and fees applicable. Sections 26 and 30 set out the obligations of each permit holder and conditions attached to the permit. This includes regulating the use of water during times of shortage or emergency, or in the public interest, and obligating the permit holder to actively conserve, protect, and use water efficiently and have recourse to alternative water sources as may be available, for example, using recycled water to reduce strain on conventional water sources. Mr. Speaker, sir, yet another provision of the bill which contributes towards making available adequate water resources for the needs of the population during times of water shortage or emergency is at Section 29 in respect of variation of permit in public interest. Section 29 specifically authorizes the minister, acting on the recommendations of the Water Resources Technical Committee, to direct the Water Resources Commission to limit in whole or in part the water allocated under any existing water use permit, where the minister has reasonable cause to believe that it is in the public interest during times of water shortage or emergency to vary or modify the terms and conditions of any entitlement to the use of water in order to supply water for the needs of the public. Such action will call, Mr. Speaker, sir, for a protocol to be put in place by the Commission so as to safeguard the interests of concerned stakeholders while keeping in view priority to be given to water for public consumption. Mr. Speaker, sir, this protocol will be elaborated in close consultation between the public and private stakeholders. The protocol will provide for the setting up of a joint committee to assess and monitor the water resources situation prevailing during the year and the forecast of availability of resources prior to onset of rainy season. A persistent deficit in the rainfall situation and its impact on our water resources will trigger appropriate actions under the protocol. The Water Resources Technical Committee will thereafter make relevant recommendations to the Minister in the event that the Minister will have to exercise his statutory powers under the Bill. Section 32 of the Bill exempts the Commission from the requirement to obtain or hold a water use permit in respect of any enterprise or activity undertaken in the discharge of its duties and functions under this Act, for example, for the construction of a dam. Subsection 3 exempt the CWA from the requirement to obtain or hold a water use permit in respect of water which is already being abstracted or taken or used by the CWA and the commencement of this part of the Act. However, for the purpose of maintaining a national register of water resources, the CWA will have to submit all details of water abstraction to the Water Resources Commission. Moreover, the bill provides at Section 25 for a water resource to be declared as reserve use, that is, to be used only to supply water for public consumption or for purposes of public utility and safety. Mr. Speaker, sir, in order to cater for the immediate supply of water for public purposes during times of acute water shortage or emergency, the bill further provides for CWA to be exempt from the requirement to hold or obtain a permit for both surface and underground water so as not to allow it to act promptly and expediently in such challenging times. For all projects undertaken during times of acute water shortage or emergency, the CWA will be required to submit to the Commission details such as the location of such water sources and volume abstracted to enable the Commission to update its inventory register of water sources and for subsequent water allocation to applicants. Mr. Speaker, sir, Part 4 of the bill is divided into 4 subparts, namely relating to general provisions, rivers and canals, dams, and underground water. The Water Resources Bill at Section 36 supports small planters in their agricultural activities by exempting them from a water use permit when using water from any river, stream, or water course. However, the small planter has to notify the Water Resources Commission accordingly. Mr. Speaker, sir, currently there is no legal framework to govern non-conventional users of water or alternative water sources, especially relevant in light of fluctuating rainfall patterns that affect seriously the surface and groundwater situations. The Water Resources Bill will promote, as per Section 35, the development of alternative water sources such as desalination, reuse of treated water, rainwater harvesting, and other technologies. The bill makes provision for such non-conventional water to be promoted, and the Commission may, as part of the conditions of a water use permit, require a water user or applicant to avail of such non-conventional resources where available, thereby making optimal use of the national water resources mix that would over time comprise surface water, underground water, harvested rainwater, recycled water, desalinated water, and others. In addition, a promoter who has set up a desalination plant or who is producing water by any non-conventional means can also sell its water to the CWA and to approved buyers. The CWA Act will, in this connection, be amended to allow the authority to enter into water purchase agreements with such developers of alternative water sources. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is in fact adequate volume of waste water treated yearly at different levels at the wastewater treatment plants. However, for acceptability factors, about 15% of the yearly treated effluents is being used for irrigation. This figure will be required to evolve in the water resources mix. In addition, it must be outlined that some private and public entities such as hotels, shopping malls, IRS, hospitals, prisons, and the airport are already using on-site tertiary treated wastewater for irrigation of lawns and green space. It is considered that the potential of wastewater for reuse is significant, no more so as it is a constant and secure source of water, not dependent on rainfall, and can substantially reduce pressure on freshwater balance, thus leading to increased water availability for potable use. Mr. Speaker, sir, subpart C of this section of the bill relates to dams. Currently, there is no legal provision regulating the construction, operation, and maintenance of dams, including private dams. These structures are very sensitive and need to be monitored regularly for continued safety and structural integrity. The Commission will keep a register of all dams. The bill further places responsibilities on dam owners, for instance, to prepare emergency preparedness plan and to carry out regular check and safety assessment to ensure no prejudice is caused to downstream occupants or users of water. Mr. Speaker, sir, provision in respect of management and regulation of underground water and boreholes are made at subpart D. Currently, it is the Groundwater Act of 1969 and regulations made under it that regulate this water source. With the coming into operation of the Water Resources Act, the Groundwater Act will be repealed. However, a person holding a groundwater license before the commencement of the Act would be deemed to be holder of a water use permit. He will have to apply for a fresh permit before expiry of his groundwater license. Mr. Speaker, sir, given that our precious water resources have to be managed in an optimal manner, it will be ensured that water use permits provided for exploitation of underground water is properly utilized. Thus, in the public interest or for the purpose of providing water for domestic purposes, special arrangements have been made at Section 46 for the Commission to enter into an arrangement with a permit holder in case a borehole has not been used for at least 3 consecutive years or no permit has been issued or renewed in its respect during the last 3 years preceding the commencement of the Act. Moreover, in times of acute water shortage or emergency, and for the purpose of ensuring adequate water for public purposes, the Commission may use underground water or water from a borehole situated on a private land or premises by giving reasonable advance notice to the owner or occupier thereof. This is in accordance with provision at Section 46 of the bill. In case a person fails to comply with this section, the bill provides for the director to apply for a judge's order. Sir Speaker, sir, due care has been taken while drafting the bill to ensure the preservation of constitutional rights of a person whether holder of a concession or as borderer, who shows legal documentary evidence of an entitlement to take water from a river or stream or by an order of the Supreme Court. These are commonly called water rights holders. Such persons have to apply for registration of existing water rights with the Water Resources Commission within 6 months of the commencement of Section 48. While processing an application for registration, the Water Resources Commission may require an applicant to furnish additional information as may be necessary, or make such inquiry as deemed necessary, or require the applicant to give public notice of the application or consider an objection made by an interested party. The Commission will keep a register of existing water rights as set out at Section 51, containing information such as the name of the person holding the existing water right, the site plan of the water source, the volume of the water entitled, and the purpose for which he is entitled to use the water. Mr. Speaker, a provision is also made in the bill for application for constitutional redress to the Supreme Court where a person alleges that any provision of the Constitution has been contravened or likely to be contravened in respect of an existing water right. In case the Supreme Court determines that there has been contravention of any provision of the Constitution and that the claimant has been affected thereby, the Supreme Court would fix the amount of compensation to be paid, make such order as necessary for the payment of the compensation, and secure the constitutionally protected right or interest of the claimant. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the case of existing water right holders, if considered necessary and urgent in the public interest, the bill makes provision for the Director of the Water Resources Commission to make an ex parte application for a temporary or immediate order from the Supreme Court for the supply, control, or protection of water resources. Part 6, Mr. Speaker, sir, deals with enforcement. Mr. Speaker, sir, under the 5th schedule of the Environment Act 2024, formerly known as Environment Protection Act, my ministry is the enforcing agency for effluent discharge and inland waters. The environment dimension of water supply is internationally gaining ground as a major concern in water legislation as water becomes scarce relative to demand and externalities increase. The need to control deterioration of water quality and protect water sources become vital. The Water Resources Bill will provide the legal and institutional framework for my ministry to better protect and conserve our water resources. The enforcement mechanisms are similar to the ones applicable under the Environment Act 2024, inasmuch as they provide for a spectrum of enforcement actions ranging from notice to remedy in case of a likely contravention to a stoppage of the activity causing the offense with respect to both quality and quantity. Under the law, the authorized officers of the Commission are designated to exercise enforcement and monitoring duties. Such officers also have powers of prosecution under Section 70 of the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, should a person fail to comply with a notice or order, the Director of the Commission may make an ex parte application to a judge for an interim and immediate order necessary for the conservation or protection of any water resources or infrastructure, or for the emergency supply of water for public purposes. An activity that adversely impacts the quality of water resources or causes damage to a water structure is severely punishable with a fine not exceeding 2 million rupees and to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years. Mr. Speaker, sir, Part 7 deals with Rodrigues. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I have already indicated, the Water Resources Act will apply to the Republic of Mauritius. The island of Rodrigues will be required to comply with the general principles of integrated water resources management while catering for the island specificities. The Rodrigues Regional Assembly will be responsible for all matters relating to the management and administration of water resources on the island and will develop plans and put in place such mechanisms for the integrated management of water resources in accordance with the Act. Part 8, miscellaneous. Mr. Speaker, sir, under Part 8 of the bill, the Minister will be empowered to make regulations regarding inter alia, the effective management of water resources, including during periods of water shortage, efficient use of water, conservation of water and protection of water resources, alternative water resources, reserved use of water, and providing measures to ensure the cleaning, clearing, maintenance, safety, and security of water courses. Mr. Speaker, sir, given the complexity of the water sector, to allow for the smooth implementation of this Act, the proper coordination and cooperation with all stakeholders, as well as the putting in place of all mechanisms and processes, a transitional period of 18 months is provided for under Section 81. Mr. Speaker, sir, any license or permit or authorization which has been granted under a repealed or amended legislation or is deemed to have been granted under this Act shall lapse after a period of 18 months from the commencement of the Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, consequential amendments will be made to the Rivers and Canals Act, the CWA Act, the Irrigation Authority Act, and the CEB Act. The Groundwater Act would be repealed. Duties relating to mobilization and development of water resources under the CWA Act, which are already being performed by the Water Resources Unit, will now be reflected in the Water Resources Bill. Except for desalinated water, CWA remains the sole undertaker for supply of treated water for domestic, industrial, and commercial purposes. Monsieur le Président, en guise de conclusion, c'est avec un sentiment du devoir accompli que je termine mon intervention. Je tiens à remercier, premièrement, le Premier ministre pour son soutien, le personnel du ministère, de mon ministère, celui du bureau de l'Attorney General et aussi l'ancien chef juge, son Excellence, M. Ashraf Ali Konai, pour l'élaboration de ce projet de loi. Mr. Speaker, sir, done. I now commend the bill to the House. Thank you.